scenes and details may be intense or unsettling for certain viewers.
Welcome to the Cartel, where power, danger, and cash runs everywhere. You are the crew chief on a one-night drug sub run. You are at a jungle rivermouth dock, knee-deep in mud and diesel sheen. You are here because the cartel owns your debt and tonight is your payment. You have one job: launch, run dark, deliver the boat, come back breathing. And if you mess up, the men with rifles on the dock won't even need to call it in. Red headlamps slice the rain. A bare floodlight flashes off wet metal. You walk the hull and press your palm to the weld seams, feeling for heat, for fresh slag, for lies. Your fingers close on the ballast valve wheel. You give it a test turn, it fights you the way it always does, then you hear it. A muffled thump from inside the ballast section. Not metal settling, not a tool dropping, a knock with rhythm. You stop for half a beat. Your face stays blank, your stomach doesn't get a vote. An escort steps in close. His pistol pushes into your ribs, casual and practiced. He angles the barrel like he's pointing at a stain. He points to the open hatch. Move now. You nod like you didn't hear anything. You slap the hull once, the signal for ready. Your other hand slides to your belt and palms the small utility knife, hiding it under your fingers. The navigator stands nearby with a greased pencil map tube tucked under his arm. He won't look at the ballast area. The engine man drags a fuel hose, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the deck boards. You climb into the hatch. The inside air is hot and old. Condensation clings to the ceiling like sweat. The metal walls breathe with the river's cold. Above you, boots shift. The escort leans in just enough for you to smell gun oil. Then the hatch dogs spin. The latch bar slams down. The hatch seals with a final, ugly thunk. You are locked into the sub, and the sound you can't unhear. Another faint knock travels through the hull like a warning code meant only for you. Dim instrument glow paints your hands sickly green. A red bulb swings over the chart table, throwing shadows that move like waves. You crouch at the ballast panel, trim gauges, pressure, valves, the checklist you can do blind. The diesel idles with a low, steady growl. The navigator hovers at the periscope tube, one eye up, one hand on the map tube like it's a weapon. The engine man watches the lever, listening for any change in the note. You crack a ballast vent for a single second. The vent coughs out warm, foul air. Thick, used, then a human gasp slips through the hiss, not from the main compartment. From behind a welded access plate you were told not to touch, you shut the vent fast, too fast, metal clacks. Everyone hears it. You point at the navigator. Hold course. Stay quiet. He swallows and gives you a tight nod. You press your ear to the welded plate. Your cheek sticks to the damp metal. You tap twice with a wrench, pretending you're checking for voids, for bad welds. A weak fist answers. 2 knocks, then nothing. Like the person on the other side used their last breath to say they're still there. You crawl into the narrow passage beside the ballast section. Your headlamp beam cuts through condensation. Droplets run down seams and fall onto your wrists. The welded access plate sits there, fresh bead still rough. It looks new enough to still be lying. You set your pry bar under the bead and test it. The metal groan. Behind you, the navigator blocks the passage. He tries to make himself bigger in a space that barely fits one body. He reaches for your shoulder. You don't let him. You shove him into the bulkhead hard enough to rattle his teeth. Your utility knife is in your hand before he can catch his balance. You put the blade close to his throat, not touching, close enough to make him feel it. You tell him with your eyes that you're done asking. He raises both hands and backs up, palms out, trapped by the tight corridor. The engine man hovers behind him with a flashlight. He avoids your face. He keeps the beam on the plate like he's obeying an order he doesn't want. You drive the pry bar again. Pop. The weld bead starts to give, little chips of slag breaking free. You shift your weight, brace your boots, and lever the plate. Metal screams. The plate cracks loose with a sharp, final snap. A hand shoots out into your headlamp beam. Fingers splay, searching for air. You grab the wrist before it can flail and bang the hull. The skin is hot. Too hot, the hand grips you back with panic strength. Now you're committed. Now everyone knows you chose this. You widen the opening with both hands, ripping insulation and dragging it away in wet clumps. Your phone flashlight joins your headlamp, 2 weak suns in a tight metal cave. Faces appear in the dark, not many enough. 2 migrants are packed behind piping like cargo that learned to breathe. One has lips split from dehydration. One blinks slow like their eyes are fighting to stay open. You jam an emergency air hose through the gap. You hold it there while they claw for it. The first breath they pull sounds like a drowning person finding surface. The sub answers immediately. It lists. Water sloshes up the bilge lip. The trim gauge needle swings hard and doesn't come back. A warning light flicks on at the panel. The hull creaks, a long complaint that vibrates through your knees. You bark at the navigator to mark the list. You bark at the engine man to cut speed. The engine man pinches a rag to his nose and reaches for the controls with shaking fingers. The navigator stares at the opened plate like he's seeing the inside of a coffin that was supposed to stay closed. One migrant coughs violently into the hose. The sound is wet and wrong. The other reaches out, misses the hose, and slumps against the pipe. Their head rolls to the side and doesn't come back up. You shove the hose deeper. You slap the limp shoulder through the gap hard. Nothing. Your cut changed the boat's balance. Your mercy just turned into a mechanical problem. And mechanical problems don't care why you did it. Pre-dawn turns the horizon gray. You run shallow, barely under the skin of the ocean, riding the line between invisible and dead. You press to the periscope and scan. A patrol search pattern crawls along the far edge of the water. A thin sweep of light, then darkness, then light again. You pull back. You point at the chart table. The navigator shakes his head before you even speak. He refuses the mangrove inlet route. Too shallow, too watched, too risky. You close the distance and pin him to the bulkhead with your forearm. The knife comes up again. Same place, same promise. You force him to plot it. His grease pencil trembles as he draws the new line. The engine man mutters about cavitation at this depth if you push the turn. You don't slow. The sub yaws toward the new heading. In the periscope, the Hello's searchlight line creeps closer across the water. You feel the boat tilt into the turn like it wants to roll over and confess everything. The engine bay is a tight hell of heat and vibration. A work light flickers. A loose wire spits sparks like angry insects. You drop to your knees by the bilge pump. It seizes with a sudden jerk. The sound stops. The water doesn't. Bilge rises around your boots, cold and oily. You rip a screwdriver from your kit and jam it into the coupling. You wrap a strip of belt around it, crude and desperate, and start hand cranking like your arms are the motor. The coupling moves, barely. It buys minutes. The engine man hovers over the diesel throttle, eyes wide, waiting for you to tell him how much speed you can afford. You order him down. Above, the navigator shouts measurements from the control compartment. The list is worsening. The ballast cavity is taking on water. You crank faster. The belt slips. Your knuckles smash into metal. Skin opens. Blood drops into the bilge and disappears in the black water. You taste iron in your mouth from breathing too hard. The pump coughs, catches, then stutters. The water keeps rising anyway. Your fixes are turning into delays. Delays are how people die in sealed compartments. Dawn leaks through seams in thin lines. The cargo hold stinks of plastic wrap and fuel. Brick stacks sit strapped down like a fortune that expects obedience. You pull your blade and cut. Plastic splits. Powdered residue smears your fingers. You don't flinch. You don't hesitate. You shove bricks into weighted sacks. 1, 2, 3. Your hands move fast, automatic. You order the engine man to drag the sacks aft. He does it with a look like he's carrying his own sentence. The navigator stands in the doorway, stunned, watching you destroy the mission like it's a sacrilege. He starts to protest. You don't let him finish. You keep packing. The dump port hatch opens with a hard twist. Sea air punches in. You shove a sack through. Splash, another, splash. The boat shivers each time the weight leaves. The trim gauge needle starts to crawl back towards center. You keep feeding sacks out until your shoulders burn. The navigator's face says the cartel will kill you for this. He's right. You don't answer, you just watch the gauge settle. The sub levels out. Behind you, a fortune is floating down into black water. In front of you, someone in the ballast is still trying to breathe. Brown water replaces blue as you slide into the mangrove inlet. Sunlight hits hard, bouncing off the surface and stabbing through the hatch seam. Roots claw up from the banks like traps. The depth sounder ticks numbers that keep getting smaller. You hold the sat phone and dial with wet, shaking fingers. The navigator holds the handset antenna toward the seam, stretching for signal like it's oxygen. You offer coordinates. You offer part of what's left of the load. You demand a quiet beach extraction. You are calling a rival faction into your cartel's lane. You are doing it on purpose. A migrant's hand grips the edge of the open plate behind you. The fingers are slick. The grip is weak. You reach into a storage bin and pull the emergency beacon. You trigger it. You set it to broadcast a false distress in the opposite direction, a bright line meant to pull eyes and boats away. Then you smash it with your boot. Once. Twice, plastic cracks. The light dies. You don't want it traced back. You don't want anyone to know you were smart enough to think of it. The navigator stares at you like you just signed your name in blood. Outside, a distant engine note grows louder. A small patrol craft noses into the inlet mouth. You hear its wake slap the mangroves, closer than it should be. Your choices are stacking up behind you like bodies. The Black Swan Cove is open and bright and unforgiving. Surf hisses. Wet sand reflects the sun like a mirror that shows everything. You beach the low-profile hull and jump into shallow water, boots sinking. You wrench the ballast opening wider. Hands come out first, then shoulders, then faces blinking against daylight like it's an attack. You haul them one by one, dragging them onto the beach edge. They collapse in the wet sand, coughing, gasping, trying to become real again. The rival pickup team appears from the tree line with rifles and face coverings. Fast, organized, you wave them in. You shove the GPS into their leader's hand. You point to the migrants, move them. Now, they start pulling people toward the trees, half carrying, half dragging. Your crew stumbles out behind you, exhausted. The engine man won't stop looking back at the inlet. The navigator keeps distance from you like you're contagious. Then another boat grinds onto the sand. Different shape, different sound. Your cartel's cleanup crew steps off like they own the tide. Suppressed weapons already raised. No shouting, no questions, just muzzles tracking heads. The rival leader snaps his gun toward them. His men spread out, your navigator backs away from you, eyes wide, finally understanding. You didn't bring rescue, you brought an intersection, a suppressed shot pops. Sand jumps near your feet, not a warning, an execution starting, and you are standing in the middle of it with blood on your hands that isn't all yours. Afternoon light turns flat under smoke. The mangrove fringe is burned in patches, blackened roots sticking out of shallow water like bones. You sit knee-deep in brackish muck. Oil-slick rainbow spreads in a thin film around you. Your hands are stained with diesel, powder, and blood. The sub is wreckage now, half submerged, still recognizable only because you know it's shaped the way you know your own scars. You scrape mud over your knuckles, smearing it into the cuts to hide the red. Like hiding it changes anything, you pull the sat phone from your pocket. Crushed, dead, you press the buttons anyway. Nothing, you look back toward where the ballast opening was. It's underwater now, just dark water and floating debris where a sealed cavity used to hold breathing people. You turn your head toward the beach. Drag marks stripe the black sand, they run toward the roots. Then they stop, no footprints back, no dropped gear, no sign of who got taken and who got erased. Far out, boat silhouettes shrink and vanish, leaving only their wakes already flattening. You don't chase, you can't. Even if you stood up and ran, there's nowhere to run that isn't owned by someone who now knows your name, your face, your choice. You push the dead phone into the mud like you're burying evidence, but you can't bury what you did to keep the sub level. You can't uncall the rival. You can't unopen the welded plate. You lean down and press your ear to the mud, listening like a fool. No knock comes. The tide slides in and erases the last tracks anyway. Not because anyone forgives you, because the water doesn't care what you can't fix.